want to welcome you. Thanks you for joining us on your Friday evening. As I mentioned, it's Friday morning for us in Seattle. This is a Q&A event for accepted students to Seattle University, and somewhat informal, but we wanted to have the opportunity for you to have some of your questions answered that are cropping up here in the weeks before the quarter begins. So I want to welcome you to this event for this evening. And as you see, we are recording this event so that it is going to be available for those who were not able to join us today. My name is Janet Shanley, and I'm the Director of Graduate Admission. With me are colleagues Joe Cordenise, the Director of International Recruitment, and his colleague Shweta Perajuli. They're from our international team. Troy Sturck is a senior admissions counselor on our team who will be supporting this event. We're also joined by colleagues from our International Student Center, Lisa, excuse me, Hirayama and Sandra Bowie. We also have two current students from India who are with us and happy to share their firsthand experience, Anushka Agarwal and Aditi Samani. We also have a colleague from our India partner on the call, Ashok Kalam. Joe, would you like to introduce Ashok?
Sure, yeah. Ashok is in Hyderabad and is a close partner with Seattle University. So he's on ground and would be happy to connect with any students as you had questions about our university or transitioning to Seattle. So Ashok, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Joe.
Great, thank you. So we want to make this hour as meaningful for you as possible. When you registered for the event, we asked for questions you hope to be addressed on the call. We are responding to the most common questions on a range of topics on a slide deck to get us started. We'll provide this slide deck to you after the event so it can be referenced for you. There's links and the like that will perhaps be helpful for you going forward. So if you have questions about anything you see here or you have new questions to ask, please feel free to address them in the chat feature, which we'll be monitoring. The chat might also be the right place for you to ask very specific questions related to your own circumstance. As time allows, we will also be able to hear your general questions asked directly for the group or to any Seattle U people on the call. So let's go ahead and get it started. So we'll pull up the slide deck. You had a lot of questions on a variety of topics. And one of them is, if you would scroll up one, Troy, I think we went one.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. On a whole host of topics. And some of them, as you can imagine, were related to registration and advising. So we will start with that particular slide deck. Troy, I think there's one right above that, but maybe it looks like, maybe not. There you go. So this particular topic is very, we had a lot of questions around registration and advising. So is this a topic that you'd want to be able to address, Joe?
There we go. Yeah, sure, I could. I think what most students should be aware of is that within each program, there's a program coordinator or academic advisors that that students are able to work with for course selection. And if you have not already been in contact, that's something that either myself or Shweta or Troy, we would be happy to make sure that you get connected to your advisor so they can help you with course selection and then planning for your courses as you progress through the program. So if you haven't, again, if you haven't had a chance to make a connection with your advisor, I'll drop in an email, my email address into the chat, so you can grab that and send me a question. And then I think we're going to talk about orientation and some more onboarding as we go through the session today. So that will give you another point of contact for how to learn more about what to expect as you enter into the program. Anybody else have anything else to add on the SU side? I think we're good.
One of the questions that came up often was about prereqs. And if you have prereqs that are required for your program and you're wanting to make sure that you've met the prereqs, that's something that you'll need to monitor with your advisor. They're the ones who know whether or not, or make that determination about whether or not the courses you've taken have satisfied prerequisites. So any updated transcripts that you can provide for coursework that you've taken since you've been admitted should be provided to should be sent to us so that we can upload it to your record and make sure that advisors have it to be able to determine if your prerequisites have all been met. Sherry, would you want to go to the next slide?
So this one that you want?
In the one after that, the one that said continued. There you go. There you go. So there were some questions around ELCB, and a few of you have been admitted through our English Language Cultural Bridge program, and that is something that is tied to your English proficiency scores. It was a question about whether or not that's something that could be if that was something that could be possible to remove if you achieved a higher score. And the rule around that is if you do receive a higher score that meets the minimum standard before classes begin, then it is possible to remove the need for ELCB coursework. So that option remains open until the quarter begins. If you don't have that option and ELCB is required, then you have to register through your advisor. You can't register on your own. You have to register through your advisor so those ELCB courses can be added. You're not able to add those ELCB courses yourself. So it appears to be a hold on your record, so that it requires a conversation with your advisor to register, just so you know. Right. Anything else that people want to mention from Seattle you want to mention about advising and registration? Anushka or DT, anything that you'd want to add about that? Okay. All right. There was a question that came up about whether you could take more than 2 classes a term. And depending on your program, you may be required to take more than 2 classes a term. And it is tied to your curriculum and whether or not it is a standard set of classes that you need to take, particularly in the early terms. And so yes is the answer to that question. You may take 2 classes per term as a matter of course, or you may take 2 classes a term if you find that works best for your schedule and you have that flexibility to be able to do that. So okay. Sure, you can go ahead and take it to the next slide. You can go again. Thank you. There was a question. It was a great segue. A question came up on the chat of asking about paying tuition. The billing for people who've already pre-registered, billing will be going out next month, but it doesn't mean you have to pay next month. The payment due date is September 20th. So that is not something that you have to take care of in the days just following the billing. So anybody from Seattle U want to walk through this slide?
I can add something to that. I see that some people have been asking about how do they use Indian banks to pay the tuition here. So what I personally did and was really helpful throughout my program was get a Forex card that you get at, I think, pretty much all the major banks in India. I got it from HDFC Bank, if that helps. And so it's like a international card that can be used in many different countries when you travel. But I got that card. You can access the card and the bank even from the US. After you move here, you can always load money from your transfer money from your Indian account to that card and then use that card at one of the banks as soon as you arrive here. I would say enroll in the bank. That is super helpful in terms of everything, pretty much like housing, employment, payments. So as soon as you enroll, you can use the same Forex card to pay your fee on Seattle U's website. And if you need more help, you can always go to financial services office in the Y Hilbert building, and they will be able to help you out. But in terms of even transferring amount from your Indian bank, you can use the same card, and it's super easy. You literally just have to insert the card and then let them know the amount of transfer, and they'll help you transfer it to your US bank account. So that is one way, one mode of payment that was really helpful.
Good suggestion, Anushka. Thank you for that. One of the other questions I think that has come up has been around payment plans. And on this slide, we'll make this slide deck available, as I said, but there's a link there to payment plans. So that allows you to make monthly payments as opposed to one quarterly payment, if that's an easier plan for you. The other, and the last bullet item there, you'll see that one of the options we have for folks making international payments is TransferMate. So that's another choice in addition to what Anushka had described there. So that's an option as well. Anushka, are you saying TransferMate depends on the bank? Okay.
The transfer fee, like there's usually a fee to transfer the amount from an international bank. So that fee usually depends on different banks. Okay. And so that's why I chose this particular bank, which had very low fee. So.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
All right. I can just add one more thing about TransferMate is that it's sort of a banking service that allows students to see multiple different payment or exchange rate options. So you'll see different, as Anushka said, you'll see different potential fees or currency transfer rates. So it's almost like a little bit of a shopping cart. So students can see various rates and then choose the one that works best for them.
Great. And where do you find that, Joe?
Directly on the student financial services page. Yeah, and it should be when the time comes, it's not right now, but when the time comes to make your first payments towards your tuition and expenses, then it'll be one of the options in the dashboard that a student can access.
Great, thank you. Next slide, Troy. So as Job said, there's orientations that are happening in at various levels on campus. One of the things you'll be hearing about from your department, if you haven't already, are program-specific dates for orientations, and these might be one-on-one with a program advisor or program department chair, or it could be that it's a group event. So those invitations will be coming out soon, so you know what's happening at the program level. Those are usually required events to participate in. As Lisa and Sandra know, the International Student Center has a welcome workshop on September 15th. That's also a required event. Lisa or Sandra, do you want to tell people what that involves?
So you should already have received emails, communication from Lisa regarding signing up for the welcome workshop. We will be rolling out another set of communication out to all students. And there will be a link to connect on Connect SU to RSVP for the event. It's just that so that we know that that you are planning to come. It is a requirement for as part of your onboarding kind of on the F1 visa. So please keep an eye out for emails that will be probably coming directly from Lisa.
And Lisa, are these going to their Seattle U email address, or are they going to their personal email address?
Good question. I've been sending them to their personal email addresses. And if you haven't received an email from me yet about the welcome workshop, don't panic. I've just started sending them, and I'm sending them in batches. So you will hear from me, and we'll have more details. But just hold on to that date. September 15th, it's the Friday before classes begin, and it will be in the afternoon, but you will get a lot more information from our office.
Great, thank you. On the 12th of September is an optional event that is co-sponsored with the Graduate Student Council. And it is a Q&A event, not unlike this, but it is done with a panel of students. But you also can get your campus card. You can get a campus tour to get yourself oriented. And it also allows you to meet other students in person as opposed to in a virtual environment like this. So it's always high energy, and it is a really fun event for us. But just know that it's optional. So if you are finding that you're trying to manage your time in those early days before the quarter begins, just know that you'll receive an invitation, and we'd love to have you, but understand that it's optional. Okay. All right, Troy, you can take us to the next slide. So we know there's lots and lots of questions about housing. Job or Shweta, do either one of you want to talk about what that situation is?
Yeah, I can get us started. There's two slides here. One focused on campus housing options, and then the next one is off campus. So we'll get to off campus in just a moment. The on campus housing options are fairly limited, meaning there's just a certain number of rooms that are available. They're typically studios or one bedroom apartments that we have set aside for our graduate students. I am told that we have just a few options left, but applications for housing applications would need to be submitted by August 1. So it doesn't leave us much time from today to the August 1 deadline, but if you are hoping to have a bed and room right on campus, there's a web link here and a QR code that you could scan from your phone right now if you'd like to. The next slide is focused on off campus. So we do have some resources that are available on this web page that will link you to neighborhood resources and some suggestions for where to begin looking if you haven't already found an apartment in the area. I think you should know, if you haven't been to our campus before, or Seattle, that we're in a neighborhood, so there are many options within a short walking distance or a short bus ride. So there are options close by that might feel like you're on campus, even though you're working with one of our partners. So I encourage you to visit this web page as an initial resource. The other thing is that we are managing with Ashok's help a WhatsApp group. And I know that there's a lot of activity there where students are saying, I have a place and I'm looking for a roommate, or asking others for suggestions on where to begin looking, and there's that help from each other to find the best option for you. So if you need help getting reconnected to these web pages, that's something I can help you with. And then Ashok, if somebody is not on this fantastic WhatsApp group, what's the best way to get them connected?
I'm sharing the link right now to everyone so that you can join the group.
Fantastic, thank you. Anushka or Aditi, any comments there that you think would be helpful for our new students to hear from?
Yeah, sure. I would say, yes, that is a good option because Seattle U is in the middle of the city. So you can just walk around. I mean, that's how most of them found housing because some of them are not listed online, even if there are vacancies. So just walking around and exploring, they're usually like on the lease available, kind of a board available pretty much everywhere. But I would say the other option that you can explore before traveling to the US would be joining in different Facebook groups related to Seattle. So there are different areas, such as if you want to, I think somebody mentioned of commuting from Redmond and Bellevue and stuff like that. So you can probably join those groups. Like, I think there are like a few Facebook groups in terms of housing and roommates. Those would be really helpful in terms of finding your roommates and housing, even if it's a temporary housing, because what people sometimes do is you need just the first 2 or 3 months of lease if to be there in the area and to be able to explore that if this is the right fit for you. So people do lease that amount of for that amount of time, which is a little expensive, but it really works. And then you can explore based on where you want to live and how much you want to commute. And also in terms of commuting, I think we have the public transport and we also get like 50% subsidy from being a Seattle U student. So that is really helpful in terms of commuting from anywhere in and around Seattle.
I would like to add on the travel part. There's also light rail, which you can use to commute around Seattle. That is also a good option. And for off-campus housing, before you come to US, you can also search apartments.com or on Zillow. You'll find good housing related information. And you can also email the leasing office and try to speak to them if they do not take the calls. So those are few good options where you can get started.
And I'd also add, if you go to Zillow, look for places to rent, and then check the map so you know the neighborhood areas and you have an idea of how far it is and if you can manage transportation depending on your schedule. So you'll find your comfort level there as well. And those are really helpful tools before, knowing where the cities are and what the distance would be like for you.
And sorry.
Oh, okay. I wanted to add in with the on-campus housing. The last time that I spoke with them, housing office has this portal that you can add yourself to, but please email housing office so that they can connect you with other students who are trying to find a roommate. Either through on-campus housing or through one of our partners that have the apartments, contracts through Seattle U that you can assign, because there's the Vi Hilbert apartment, there is the Douglas that is really like right across from the campus. So please check out the Seattle Housing Office website, because they do have a lot of connection now as far as for how to connect you with other students. The only thing that I wanted to add is when you are finding an apartment that is off campus, they are very strict, and it's a 1-year contract that you will be signing. And if you decide to move out, you're liable to pay for the rest of the contract. So make sure that when you are signing any, housing contract, read it carefully, what some of the penalties are, if there is any. So it's really, kind of once you sign the contract, you're buying to it. And so if you do move out, you have to find somebody to replace your, to kind of take over your lease. So that's something I think, as far as for maneuvering around with housing, I don't know, Nusha, if you kind of went through it already, maybe that would be something that, and to help the students out, if within that what's out, maybe there'll be a discussion more about it. But I think signing the lease is also an initial kind of web to go around, because that's something that I think all of us are trying to help the student, but some of that is the contract is between the student and the apartment. So sometimes we don't really see a lot, but we see some students coming through our office after they sign a contract and also with a roommate, and then they find out they are having difficulty with the roommate, so they want to get out of the contract, but they can't because they're locked in already. So I think some of that issue should be addressed, so that before signing a contract that you have somebody to kind of help you to look over. And if you're really familiar with the area, then you can sign the contract. And like Sweta said, you really have to know the area where you are living, so that you're not just like, oh, here's a cheap place, I'll get into it. And then you find out it's not the best place for you to live. It could be, signing the contract and it's miles away and you don't have a car yet. So busing is not the best option. And so public transportation is good here in Seattle, but when you're trying to find a place to stay, look around to kind of see. I think Google Map is really good now. So see if there's public transportation close by where you live, so that you don't have to walk like miles and miles out to wait for a bus. Especially, in the winter here, it gets dark a little, earlier. So that is something to consider.
Hey, Sandra, I think we have our next slide, maybe, Troy. Is that right, where we talk about transportation? Oh, not yet.
Close.
in just a minute, everybody.
Yeah,
we're going to
we'll talk about transportation.
Transportation and have some links for you to help you know how to navigate the city.
Okay.
Go ahead, Janet.
The pre-arrival checklist, this is coming from the ISC website, but this is what you should be coming to the airport prepared, the documentation you should be having with you when you come to the airport. And sometimes we'll have questions about, what is it that you need to have on hand? And so this is a checklist of those sorts of things that you should be anticipating and bringing with you, so that the conversations that you have at the airport, you're prepared for. So we don't necessarily need to go through these line by line, because I think they'll be self-explanatory. But if you have questions about anything that you see here, feel free to ask that in the chat. But I think this is a great resource for you to pull all your documentation together and be prepared for that conversation at the airport. Okay.
I just want to add one more thing to that, the arrival check-in. I think the phone number, I wanted to add one thing, because if you are, for those who are arriving, especially not during business hours, if you can note down, I think it should be listed on your I-20 already. If there is problem at the border, at the port of entry, you can refer the immigration officer to call the university at that 206-296. 5990 number, so that if there is any problem at the port of entry, then the immigration officer can call that number, and one of us can get, they'll contact us so that we'll get onto it to get the things straightened out, so that can transition and make your arrival smoother. So that phone number should only be used for the time of your arrival that is not during the when the university is closed. So just to keep that on the side.
Very good point, Sandra, because if it's 11 o'clock at night, you're not going to get somebody at 6260. All right, thank you. Next slide. Here's transportation. You've heard several people talking about the transportation services that we have between bus and light rail. As you can see, one of the many questions that people have had about transportation from the airport when they arrive. Job, is this something that you wanted to expand on since you had started that conversation earlier?
Yeah, sure. The airport, if you haven't already purchased your ticket yet to Seattle, is the Seattle Tacoma Airport. It's often shortened to just SeaTac Airport, and that can be about 30 to maybe 45 minutes away, hopefully a little bit less, from airport to campus. And we have, again, some web resources that give you some options, some quick options, and on how to navigate the transportation from SeaTac to campus. That web page also gives you a street address. So if you are using a car service, taxi, Uber, or Lyft, even a super shuttle, it's a van service that will help you move from airport to campus. You're going to need to give them a street address, either to your new apartment or to campus if that's going to work better for you. But there's some easy options to consider. The Link light rail is our train system, often just referred to as the Link or the train. But that would cost students less than $4, probably, maybe less than $5 for a one-way trip. And there is a stop right on Capitol Hill that is probably a 10-minute walk. So depending on how much luggage you have, that could be an option. But it might be easier to think about one of the car services as a way to navigate. And I see in the chat there's just a couple questions about neighborhoods, either for looking for apartments or just getting to know where we are located. On this web page, there's also a link to a campus map, so you could get to know our facilities, but also what's available in the area. And just a quick note here too, that when you land at SeaTac, you may or may not have a phone that works. And coming up, hopefully pretty soon, we're gonna have some information for you on how to help you get a US number and make that a little bit easier for you, so you can send a message back home saying you arrived safely, and also to help you make connection to apartment options and to each other. So please keep an eye out on your Seattle U email, as we'll have information coming up shortly about how to get that US phone number. Anything else to add about transportation, especially from our current students? We're doing okay? All right.
All right, thank you, Joe. You can go to the next slide, Troy. So there were lots of questions about campus work. You're able to work up to 20 hours a week as a student while school is in session. When school is out of session, there's a possibility of working up to 40 hours a week if your employer is able to do that. The listing of on-campus jobs, you are eligible as a student to apply for any on-campus job, even as a graduate student. As a general rule, we don't have teaching assistantships, few research assistantships, very few, like could fit in one hand. But primarily it's student work and various campus jobs around campus. Those are posted, employers are posting those options on a service called Handshake. You'll have a link to it here through this slide deck, but you can also find it on the website under student employment. That particular tool allows you to submit applications, but it also lets you know what kinds of things are available. The other thing that you should know about campus employment is around a Social Security number and the need to obtain a Social Security number. So oftentimes that will delay your start if you have not obtained a Social Security number yet. So there'll need to be there's forms that are required from our student employment office that will help you get that process started. But Anushka or Aditi, I know Anushka has campus employment. I don't know about you, Aditi, but that process of obtaining the Social Security number and the paperwork that's required, are there any tips that you would have about campus employment or getting yourself eligible?
I'd like to jump in real quick about the Social Security number. You're gonna need your bank account details. And I think it's helpful to get all the documents within the first week of arrival, such as getting the SUI card, opening a bank, which I think we have a lot of options here. But the closest to we do have closer banks to Seattle, which are like within the 5 minutes walking distance. So those would be really helpful if you are living close to campus. But if you have these documents in place, then I think it's easier to apply for a Social Security number. And the sooner you do it, the sooner you can start working. Otherwise, your employment will also be slightly delayed on campus.
So when you go for the Social Security numbers office as well, it's so it takes around 2 to 3 hours. So that's one thing I wanted to add. And also the process is on the website. You have to first obtain a few documents from the international office to go to this Social Security office. Few of the documents are like the letter for SSN and your recent I-20 and a few other docs. Yeah.
I'm going to add, to enable for you to get a Social Security number, the only, and we'll go over this later on too, but in our welcome workshop, but the only reason that Social Security Administration is going to issue you an I-20 is that you will have an on-campus job. And so after you have gone through Handshake to find the job, apply for the job, and you have an offer. Once you have the offer from the department, you need to request for an actual offer letter itself, and it has to be on letterhead. So that offer letter enables us to write you. One of the advisors here at the International Student Center will write a letter to support your case for the Social Security number. So once you turn that in and you have the two letters, the offer letter and the letter from the ISC supporting you for the Social Security number, you'll get into download the form to fill out the application for the SSN number. Then you actually will go down to the Social Security Administration office to submit that application. And it will take at least 2 weeks for you to get that number. There's some timing in it for you, especially for those who are coming in to Seattle U as a first-time student studying here. And a lot of that is by when you receive an initial attendance I-20. Once you arrive and attend the welcome workshop, we would have to register and report your arrival on our campus, and you won't be able to go down to the Social Security Administration office to apply for the number. After 2 weeks, we have registered and report your arrival on our campus. So it's not going to be immediate. You will have to have a 2-week wait after we activate your CVIS record. Then you can go down to apply for the Social Security number. So keep a note of that sometimes it is not an immediate thing. So after your arrival, you wait for 2 weeks and then go down to apply for the number, and then probably another 2 weeks of wait to get your card. So in that timeline, it's about 4 weeks before you actually can start working. So
Okay.
talk to the department, whoever that you have the offer, about the timing of this so that you can work on a time that pick out a good start date for you.
Great. That's good advice. Thank you, Sandra. Troy, can we go to the next slide, please? So a couple of questions came up about health insurance and kind of required immunizations. I guess we would call this the post-COVID era, but the requirements around having vaccinations are now recommendations as opposed to requirements. So we have a list of recommended vaccines. COVID is one of them as a recommended vaccine, but there's a link here to that page on our health center website for recommended vaccines. There is a requirement that international students have health insurance, and we have a health insurance provider in Aetna. Somebody, you'll be automatically enrolled in this coverage for health insurance unless you're eligible for a waiver. And so there's very specific guidelines around the waiver. And there's a link here to the page that lists what the possible waivers are. There was a question about whether somebody could be in Primera Blue Cross instead of Aetna, and it does talk on this waiver instruction about that possibility as well. So please read that carefully. Know that without a waiver, you're going to be automatically enrolled and billed for this Aetna insurance. The coverage does go for 1 year, so it's the full academic year, not it's 12 months. So it starts September 1 and goes till the 31st of August of the following year. So it's a 12-month coverage each time.
Janet, could I just add?
Yeah.
We will be covering insurance a lot more at the Welcome Workshop. And also we're asking all of you to complete an online course through the Canvas platform. We'd like you to do that before the Welcome Workshop. It provides a lot more orientation details, and part of those details are about the health insurance coverage. So be sure that you check out that Canvas course, and there will be information about that in the email that I'm sending to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
All right. You want to take us to the next slide, Troy? So we have a lot of resources available for you at the university. This is just a handful. You should have all received as part of your acceptance was a checklist of things that can happen next, but also you should have been invited to our Canvas course as well, which is just has a host of resources for you, logistics on things that you need to know in the early days and months. One of the resources that is just chock full of information is the website for the Student Support Center. They've done a lot of research. They have the best email address and website is get-answers@seattleu.edu, because their whole purpose is to provide support for new and continuing students and other family members around a host of issues on campus. So that's a great website for you. The International Student Center, of course, has a lot of very important information that would be helpful to you. Since you've had lots of questions around billing and payment and tuition, Student Financial Services is an important resource for you in the early days. Of course, our office in graduate admissions remains open and willing to help you in any way we can. Aditi is here representing our Graduate Student Council and are you Vice President, Aditi, for this year?
Yes.
So she is, that transition just happened at the beginning of June. And so she's but she's been part of that council last year as well. So the Graduate Student Council also has been trying to compile a lot of resources for students as well. The WhatsApp group you've been hearing about throughout this call is monitored by SU folks as well. And we try to jump in and answer questions where we can and provide guidance where we can. So it is also an important resource for you as you move through the next few weeks and months as you prepare. So I think that's the end of this slide deck, Troy, so we can stop that. And then we can just open it back up to the group for the few minutes that we have left. Whether chat's been very, very busy, but if there are questions that anybody wants to ask directly that would be good for the group, this is your opportunity to do that. Or if there are other sort of topics that you want to introduce that haven't already been addressed in the slide deck, this is your opportunity to do that. Ashok, is there anything from your end that you want to make sure people are aware of, just as a source of support in India for people on the call?
Most of the questions have been answered. These are the basic things which the students will be asking, and the WhatsApp group is already shared in the group, so they can be in touch with everyone there.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to add, because this was the mistake that we did when we arrived in the US, was what do you pack when you move to Seattle? Don't get umbrellas, guys. I mean, we got like 2 or 3 pairs of umbrellas. Weren't really helpful. You'll understand why once you arrive. But I think raincoats are going to be actually helpful with the hood. And get some winter jackets as well. That would be really helpful because it does get really chilly out here. Which we didn't really, I think we underestimated the weather a lot when we arrived. So these two are my, I think, most important ones. You get food, everything else here. So yeah.
Anushka, how about the buy nothing neighborhood groups?
Oh yes, I mean, but I think that so fortunately we have these buy nothing Facebook groups pretty much in every area of Seattle. So I think you can enroll into that. It's like, the admin has to enroll in after you let them know where you live. So you have to give the crossroads of where you live, and then you can join the group. So what happens in this group is we have a lot of philanthropists in Seattle, like really rich, humble philanthropists, and who likes to give away stuff a lot. And personally, I think Janet helped me a lot when I moved into a new house. was you get a lot of furniture. You can get pretty much everything from your everyday use to sometimes even produce and food. So that's a really helpful resource that you can look into once you have your housing finalized, I would say, because it's usually for the closer area. So you can just walk, pick up your stuff and go back home.
Thank you. Anything else in the in the group at large that is a topic you want to cover before we wrap it up?
I didn't see it in the chat, but apparently there was a question about missing the welcome workshop. And so if there's a reason that you're not able to attend that workshop, like you're arriving over the weekend after it's already happened, for example, please, first of all, let us know that you're not going to be able to be there. And then we will have a makeup session, a way for you to make it up and get the information that you've missed, and we'll send out that information.
That's very helpful, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, it looks like chat questions have slowed down as well. So I think we will, yep, there's one. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, good morning, guys. I have one question regarding courses. So there are some courses showing 000 in the waitlisted available and assigned classes. So what does that mean? Is the courses are under planning, or they won't be available for the term?
If they are listed as a 000 course, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with why it would even be listed that way.
So like if you are able to see the course CPSC 500, it shows 000 in seats, like 0 available, 0 capacity, and 0 waitlisted. So what does that mean?
I am not familiar with that. If we can take down your contact information, we can investigate that and get back to you just to make sure that you know, we can address that question. I just don't think that is something we're familiar with in our group right here.
Yes, and I have one other question regarding the same.
Sure.
I have been admitted into Masters of Science in Computer Science, but there are specialization in that data science and software engineering. So do I have to fill certain forms to opt for specialization, or just I can just select the courses so that I'll be directly enrolled?
If you want to declare specialization, you can do that once you arrive. You don't have to do it prior to arrival, but there is a form in the registrar's office that you would submit to add the specialization to your degree program.
Okay, so it's a compulsion to select either specialization.
And you don't have to do it right away. You would have probably, you know, the first quarter to decide whether or not you want to add a specialization, but you don't want to wait much beyond that to make sure you get the course sequencing that you want. But that would be a conversation with your advisor too about planning out the courses for the program and the specialization.
Yeah. So basically specialization is required, right?
Yep. You don't have to have a specialization, but you would plan the coursework for your specialization with your advisor.
Okay, got it.
And I have one more question. This is Krishna.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have one more question left.
Yeah, Krishna.
Yeah, so I have paid my service fees on June of 2022. So it's been 1 year. I have talked with FMJ fees. So they asked not to pay the service fees again, as my visa was approved on April 2023. So what is my status, my service status from your side? That's what my question is. Is it under active or not?
So I can answer that question. The CVIS fee is only valid for 1 year. So if you had paid that, when was your visa approved?
April 2023.
April 2023. Okay.
Yes.
Because if you paid the CVIS fee and your visa was approved already, it should be okay. But sometimes because the CVIS fee is only valid for 1 year, the system and you have not entered the US, the system could SDVP, this is the immigration database, could actually consider that as invalid. So you may have to pay another fee again. But do email me or Lisa, and we can find out, we can look into your CVIS record and we can find out whether or not you are required to pay another fee.
I have also spoke with FMJ fees customer care. So when I spoke with them, they told me that if your visa was approved in an year after your initial payment, you should not required to pay again. If it is within 1 year of approval, you should not need to pay it again, according to their thing.
Yeah, well, whatever the situation is, we can look from our end whether or not the CVIS fee is still, applied to your CVIS record from our end. So, email us and we'll find that out for you.
Yeah, sure. Is it compulsion to pay first semester fees in India before arriving to US or not?
To pay which fee?
The first quarter fees, the first semester fees.
You can pay those when you arrive. You don't have to pay those from India. You can do those when you arrive, but it is the fee payment due date is September 20th.
Okay, so what if the immigration officers or the border officer asks for a kind of payment receipt or something else?
I don't think that's one of the required documents that you have with immigration is to show that you've already paid the fee. You have to show registration.
Can I answer
you don't have to show that you've paid the fee.
Krishna, nowadays, there are some questions at the immigration, the port of entry, that whether the student has paid the fees or not, because they're finding a lot of students transferring out, enrolling university and then going to the other university. So they want to check the student seriousness. And I would recommend, if at all, you have made all your plans to pay your first semester fee, that would be appreciated, and it would be a safety plan to you to get into the university safely.
Also, there was a question about whether it's necessary to pay the CVIS fee or the visa immigration fee. It's called the I-901 fee before arrival. You really should pay that fee before you enter the US. It's actually supposed to be paid before you schedule a visa appointment. So if you haven't paid that 901 fee, it's a good idea to do that. They could ask about it at the airport. It's not likely, but it's possible. And it would be good to carry the receipt with you that you have paid that I-901 fee.
The only other thing that I think to remember is that the fees are due only if you are registered for the classes, because if you haven't registered for the class, the university won't be able to bill anything. So once you've registered for the classes, then you get a bill, then you will be able to pay for the tuitions and fees. So keep in mind.
There was another question.
Yeah, correct.
Sushmita asked about whether attending the welcome workshop is reporting to campus. So yes, if you attend the welcome workshop, we take that as you're reporting your arrival to us. For students that aren't able to attend that welcome workshop, then yes, you do need to check in with your advisor in the International Student Center so that we know that you have arrived and can give you the information that you've missed.
Hi, my name is Roma, and I have one question. Say I arrive in campus on 17th of August, because that is my landing date, and I intend to come to the campus to hand over my transcripts. So will my Service ID start to get activated on that day, or is it from 15th September only, since the welcome workshop?
Your CVIS record is activated the moment you enter through immigration at the airport. So that activates your CVIS record. And then once you've arrived on campus, you just need to check in with us. We will then register your attendance in the CVIS system. That usually takes us a couple of weeks after the quarter gets started, because we have almost 1,000 students that we have to register in the system. But that's something that our office does, is to, you report to us and then we report to immigration that yes, you have arrived.
I want to clarify that arrival date. So on your I-20, the date that you can, that we're saying is that you are to arrive on September 14th as the start date, because that's the welcome workshop that you are required to attend. So that gives you at least 30 days. You should not enter the US more than 30 days before that arrival date. So if you do enter, it allows you, what immigration is saying is that you can arrive within the 30 days before that start date. So you can prepare, find a place to live, get ready, settle before class starts and orientation. But technically, we cannot report your arrival yet when you arrived on August 17th. So that needs to happen after you come to the welcome workshop, and that's part of the required session to start your student status here at SU. So the actually reporting of your arrival on our campus does not happen yet until after September 14th, when you have attended the welcome workshop.
Understood. That helps. Thank you.
All right, I am looking at time, and that was a fast hour plus, but I am so grateful for you for taking the time this evening to be with us and with each other. So we know that there are a number of logistical concerns that you have in the weeks ahead, and your questions were great, and hopefully you had the answers to them that you needed. Please don't hesitate to continue to reach out for support as you make your plans. Stay connected or get connected to the WhatsApp group as well. Maybe you'll find a travel buddy. You've seen some of that happen on the WhatsApp conversations where people are like, I'm flying out of Hyderabad on such and such a date. Anybody else? You might even find a roommate from that WhatsApp group. We're very excited to have you join us in September, and hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend ahead. Thank you for being with us.